Hey everybody, I'm Jim Barry, and once again, this is Miami Life. This is the show that puts a microscope to life right here in South Florida and the people that make this place so special. We lead off the news today with the conversation about the news and where people in South Florida are getting it. Because there are layers of options, we know that. Traditional broadcast channels or streaming, like how you are seeing this show right now. Available on a big screen or even on your phone. Yep, newspapers and radio, yeah, they're still around. And there's this whole new world of non-traditional media like TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube and, of course, podcasts. So there's plenty of a landscape there now. Joining me today off the top are three Gen Zers. All say they plan to be journalists in their careers, so I'm eager to hear what they have to say about what they think the future of this business holds. Pietro Romano is a freshman at Miami-Dade College studying communications and journalism. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Also with us is Julian Davis, a senior at FIU studying broadcast journalism, and Bryce Johnson, a senior at Nova Southeastern University. He's also editor-in-chief of the school paper, The Current. Thank you all for being here today. So let me start by asking the most basic question, and Julian, I'm going to start with you.
Go right ahead.
Where do you get most of your news from right now?
I get most of my news online, whether that's like Instagram, sometimes even YouTube and Snapchat. I also get news from like Apple, plus like the notifications that pop on my phone. And yeah, that's where I get my news.
You just
mostly
put a dagger in my heart because you didn't say, I watch you on TV every day, Jim.
Well, I do
TV.
watch you on TV. My mom watches you in the evening time, so it's like,
Okay.
yes, I see Jim Barry on TV.
Okay,
Yes.
nice recovery there, Julian. But Pietro, that's kind of typical, isn't it? That your generation pretty much gets the news right here.
Yes, exactly. And for me, I feel like honestly the most reliable sources would be news channels, watching you on TV, you know, searching on big search engines, for example, Google, Microsoft Edge. For me, I do get my news on Instagram sometimes. I don't use TikTok, might be a hot take, but I do get news from YouTube. But honestly, for me as a journalist, I usually get my news from sources or from big search engines like Google and Microsoft Edge.
So, Bryce, you've heard what they said. Can you trust what you read or get on social media?
Well, sometimes I think you can't trust it because people online, they kind of fabricate stuff a lot. So what I would do is just like double check it, like check with other sources, even check with news outlets to see like if the information is accurate.
So a traditional TV journalist like me, how do I reach viewers like you, Pietro?
So I would say, since now we use so much social media, TikTok and YouTube, I would say that maybe if you post something over there, do those 1-minute videos, those get really famous, those go out there and, you know, get lots of views. So I would
Hook
say
people like that.
Exactly. So I would say that this is something that catches the eye of the younger generation. But for me, I usually get my news from other sources.
Yeah.
So.
So now, Julian, when you go to your phone or Google or wherever, are you reading articles or are you just reading little snippets like 1 or 2 sentences or paragraphs just to get sort of the headlines?
So it depends on the topic that's published. If it's something that I'm really interested in, like environmental topics or social issues, I would read a long-formed article. But if it's something like, let's say like a crime story or a politics story, I would read a snippet, like just get the basic general information, and then for other stories I'll read more into it, then check other sources and stuff.
Bryce, are smartphones making the consumption of news easier for your generation or less easy?
I feel like it does make it easier because like without a smartphone, you may have to like catch the news when it's on your TV, or you may have to go out to find a newspaper.
Oh, what a terrible thing. You actually have to sit down and watch the news. I'm kidding you, go ahead.
But like with the smartphone, it's just like you have the news like right in your hand, ready to access. Although, I guess with that comes like more information that is like kind of wrong, so you have to sift through it more carefully.
What about the trust factor today, guys, in terms of the media in general? Because I've seen studies that indicate that a large chunk of people now don't really feel they can trust the mass media. Pietro?
The mass media, you mean like social media or the news channels?
Good point. I think they mean traditional media, quite honestly.
Traditional media?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that it's a very reliable source. I feel like it depends because people always think that there is a certain bias. But for me, it had always been a very reliable source, that and articles, you know. So for me, I think that it's extremely reliable. So.
Yeah, we're looking at the traditional media. In fact, this is our station now. We're looking at a clip of Elliot Rodriguez and Lauren Pastrana, our two main anchors. And so you guys don't really do what we call appointment TV anymore. Hey, the 6 o'clock news is on. I'm going to sit down and watch the news at 6 o'clock. Or do you?
I actually, well, yes, I do. I watched David Muir. I love how he presents the news for ABC World News Tonight. But I feel like since many people in my generation are constantly on the move, we're always on our smartphones. We're always like, you know, going from point A to point B, sitting at home at TV, watching for like a certain time of the day can be kind of inconvenient. So if we're like, you know, we're at work or we're out with friends and we get like, you know, a news blurb, like a notification on our phones, like, yeah, now you can read this on the go while we're getting our coffee or out on the jog or whatnot. It's very mobile, it's very accessible. I feel like people like having those options.
Bryce, here's my question, since you're the newspaper guy. Do you think that leaves people informed?
I think with having like that access to that information, like all of it, it makes people like not want to maybe read it as thoroughly because like they can just kind of like glance at it. Like if you're going on Instagram, just swiping through all those posts, news posts, you're not like looking at it carefully.
It's like getting the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
Right, but as opposed to really studying, Pietra.
Yeah, and sometimes people, like, I see a lot of this with my friends. Sometimes they just read, for example, someone posts a not so trustworthy post, and then they leave a comment and they instantly believe it. So for me, I feel like you always have to double check. You always have to keep an eye, you know, especially when it comes to social media.
All right, well, I've asked you guys enough questions. Since I'm the old school head here, I'm going to let each of you guys ask me one question because you know, I have some concerns about the business and where it's going, but I'm eager and happy to see that you guys are interested. So fire away real quick. Who wants to go first?
So I want to ask, where do you see this industry in the future? How do you see it? Do you see it growing? Do you see social media taking it over? I really wanted to know.
Here's what I think. I think that no matter where you get the news, traditional, non-traditional, whatever, I think there's always room for good storytelling. And the bottom line is, I think all of us journalists will tell you, especially broadcast journalists will tell you that we are journalists, but we're storytellers. And so we're always looking to tell interesting stories about people. And so I think as long as you have that skill, as long as you can write, I think people will want to continue to have the thirst for knowledge, whether it's on this little box that we call television now, on your phone, or in some other thing that's invented now that we can't even recognize. So that's what I hope.
I have a question for you. So, you've been in the business for a very long time. That's amazing. You've been in a time when journalism was highly trusted, I feel like, and now we've come to a time when journalism has been under attack by authority figures all over the world.
Yep.
How, in your opinion, do you think, as us as upcoming journalists, can we earn the trust back of our audience?
Simple. Tell the truth. Bottom line, put the truth first and hope people recognize it. And you're right, I think that is a big danger. And if people tend to believe what seems to be unbelievable, it seems to make our job that much more difficult. But I think you have to believe that the truth will win, that people want the honest to goodness truth, whatever that is. And sadly, I think especially that's true in times of crisis. And so I'm not wishing for a crisis, but I think that's really when journalists shine. You know, when there's a hurricane coming, for example, people aren't interested in opinions about climate change or not. They want to know, am I going to be safe? What do I need to do to be safe? How bad is this storm going to be? So they're interested in people like us who can communicate effectively and telling them exactly what the truth is.
So generative AI is getting more advanced nowadays.
Oh boy, I knew that question was coming.
And it's like it can make photos, people that look real but like never happened. So my question is like, what role do you think generative AI can play in the future of journalism?
That is a very scary question. In fact, one of the first things we did on this show was a topic on artificial intelligence, and we put me into an AI program, and the virtual Jim came out, and it was kind of scary. It wasn't quite like me, but it was pretty close. You know, I think we're already seeing that now in terms of people using AI to gather information quickly. And I would say the same thing that I said to Julian that at the end of the day, I think there are layers of depth of reporting that I don't think necessarily that AI is going to find, nuances that AI isn't necessarily going to be able to interpret. So I'm going to believe in the power of humanity, and that ultimately we have to trust in the fact that people will see through what's missing and what isn't. It's almost like you know, when you're making a good soup. This doesn't taste quite the same as the way Grandma made it. You add that little bit of extra, then they'll realize it's authentic. And I think that's the same thing. I think the human touch is something that we'll never lose. And so if you continue the human touch, and if you continue to seek the truth, and if you continue to tell good stories, guys, I think you guys will be just fine down the road. Okay?
Hopefully.
All right, up next, could Miami be on the verge of losing two of its biggest sports stars?
Like, not a great time to be a Miami sports fan.
Coming up, a deep dive on why the Dolphins' Tyreek Hill and the Heat's Jimmy Butler are making noise about wanting to leave. And one of South Florida's most unique spots reopened. We visit the new and improved Mai Kai restaurant in a moment. Well, welcome back. Well, South Florida sports fans are not happy at all that two of the biggest stars in town have dropped strong hints that they want out of South Florida. Miami Dolphins star receiver Tyreek Hill vented about wanting out after the Dolphins missed the playoffs. Now, Fins general manager Chris Greer says Hill has not formally asked to be traded, so we'll see where that story actually lands. However, things between the Heat and Jimmy Butler seem much more fractured. An artist in Wynwood updated his Jimmy Butler mural after hearing about the latest flap between the star player and the team. Butler is in the midst of a 7-game suspension after publicly doubting that he could regain his basketball joy by continuing to play for the Heat. The artist who changed the mural tells CBS Miami why this touched a nerve.
The average person has to work their job and feed their family, and so people don't get the opportunity to just quit. And you know, so that touched me in the wrong way. That was more than just basketball. You know, it's integrity.
Well, after these big stories broke, I sat down with CBS Miami sports anchor Mike Cunha for a deep dive on these two unhappy stars. All right, joining me now is sports anchor Mike Cunha. Not the kind of news that sports fans here in South Florida want to hear, that two of the biggest stars might want to book out of town. So I'm going to ask you questions on the opposite side of the spectrum, Mike. Okay. First question, are both these guys, Tyreek Hill and Jimmy Butler, being crybabies?
Crybabies, divas, I don't know. It's definitely not in the water, because they both have said that they both love living here in Miami. So it's not the city of Miami. It's certainly not the state of Florida, because everyone knows that no income tax, they gotta love being here. But this is something that's kind of par for the course for both of them. And let me explain. Jimmy Butler, he has figured his way out of town in a number of different teams, most notably Minnesota, forced his way out of there.
Chicago.
He wasn't happy in Chicago.
Philly.
That's why he got traded to Minnesota. And then Philly, they didn't want to give him the big contract he wanted. And that's how he ends up here in Miami. So this is kind of what Jimmy Butler does. I was surprised by it because we asked him when he arrived here, do you think this is your last stop? He said yes. Everything looked like he was breaking that way. All the finals appearances, the Eastern Conference finals appearances.
So why the divorce?
He wanted more money. He's an aging superstar. He's not 29 anymore. He's not 28. He's getting up there. He's 35. We're a month away now from the trade deadline, so the Heat have to figure out something to move him. And in terms of Tyreek Hill, he wanted more money from the Chiefs, didn't get it. He gets traded to Miami. He got more money with the Dolphins, but what we saw this year was his production take a huge dive. You got to remember, this was the player who was voted the #1 player in the NFL
by his peers.
By his peers coming into the season. He might not even sniff the top 20 this year because of his numbers taking a dip.
So then let me flip it around and ask the question the other way. Have the franchises let these guys down? And I'm thinking, especially in terms of Jimmy Butler, who had a pretty heavy lift, taking a team full of guys who frankly were pretty unheralded to the NBA Finals. I
would say yes for the Heat, but let's look at the track record for Pat Riley. He's the guy, and maybe the only guy right now in Miami not making an emotional decision. He came out and said, look, we're not trading Jimmy Butler. He was going to keep him here. And then it just got worse and worse and unsustainable. We saw him move on from Dwayne Wade. We saw him move on from Shaq. We saw him move on from Zoe. All these guys, as they got up in age. Pat Riley, you got to believe he's trying to do the best thing for the organization. Again, do you want to pay Jimmy Butler $50-60 million when he's 37, or do you want to start the rebuild now and see if you could build around Bam and Tyler Hero?
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes to Tyreek Hill, it's just, I think the offense changed. It's not that high explosive offense. They've all said it. Even Tyreek Hill said it. Mike McDaniel alluded to it being sort of his idea. Maybe these long, drawn-out drives, more ball control, game control, not just to hit you over the head.
Right.
That's how you win in December. They didn't win that in December. They didn't win in January. Now Tyreek Hill's not happy.
Yeah.
To me, if you had to ask me today what I thought would happen, I think the Tyreek Hill Miami Dolphin experiment is over.
All right, still to come on Miami Life, the revival of one of the most unique dining spots in all of South Florida. Stick around as we visit the legendary Mai Kai in Fort Lauderdale. Welcome back. Well, in South Florida, there remains a nostalgic slice of the South Pacific. Fort Lauderdale's historic Mai Kai restaurant has just reopened to packed houses and rave reviews. The iconic spot was on the verge of becoming extinct until a new ownership group stepped up to preserve its tradition of Polynesian joy. We recently paid the place a visit to see why everybody there seems so happy. The Mai Kai takes you to places thousands of miles away and immerses you in cultures that are thousands of years old. In South Florida, where so much is new, the Mai Kai is a throwback. Why did you think it was important to preserve this spot?
Mai Kai is a South Florida institution. It's a legacy. It's something that is so unique, not just in South Florida, but all over the United States.
Two brothers, Bob and Jack Thornton, opened the Mai Kai in 1956 in what then was a remote part of suburban Fort Lauderdale. Over the years, it became a place locals and tourists alike flocked to enjoy the hula dancing, strong tropical cocktails, and a whole lot of good times.
Their childhood memories, or a lot of people got married here, engaged here, had anniversaries here, birthdays here. It just recalls all the great memories they've had in the past.
In 2020, it appeared the Mai Kai's run would be over. A burst pipe led to a roof collapse. The place closed. High-rise developers had their eyes on the land. But businessman Bill Fuller, who came to the Mai Kai years ago as a kid, convinced the Mai Kai family heirs to let him and his management company take a shot at reviving it.
The real story is the fact that they were absolutely committed to what their family had started, and I think they made the right choice, and here we are today, and I think we've rebuilt the Mai Kai for now the next 65 years and beyond.
4 years and $20 million in renovations later, the new and improved Mai Kai is back on the block with authentic tiki touches, new nooks and crannies, and the same old joyous spirit. On the night we dropped in, the place was packed, the food scrumptious, and the show entertaining. And the patrons seemed to lap it all up. What's special about it to you?
Oh my God, everything, the ambience, the food, the show, the people, everybody happy.
And that is music to the ears of Tehere Buchin, the Mai Kai's entertainment director and show MC. As a child, she watched her family members dance at the restaurant. Now, teaching others about the many aspects of Polynesian culture has become her life's mission. Why do you think this place is connected with so many people?
Because it's the spirit of aloha. It's what we embody as Polynesians. Some may call it Southern hospitality. It's something that's common to everyone, and this is a gathering place that culminates that spirit.
Keeping those traditions alive requires practice and skill, something you don't pick up overnight. I'll do it in slow motion. And you do like this, huh? Okay. I'll leave that to the experts and stay in my lane. Maybe there's another place for me on stage as an auxiliary, backup, emergency dancer. Did you see me on stage?
I sure did.
Give it to me straight. What do you think?
I'm hiring.
What do these mean?
These are kukui beads. They come from the candlenut tree somewhere in Hawaii. They're really, we wear them. It's a sign of friendship. And I actually brought your own Mai Kai kukui beads that I'm going to provide you with. And so the next time I see you in the venue here, you'll make sure you're wearing some of that right there. And so it's our sign of friendship. You're now officially part of our ohana. Thank you. Aloha, mahalo.
I feel like I'm blinged out now. You know what I mean? What a spot. I urge everybody to get up there and check it out. We'll be right back with more in a minute. Well, if you are beginning the year 2025 by taking a break from drinking, you are not alone. Nearly a third of adult Americans are giving dry January a shot. That's when you cut back or eliminate drinking altogether for the whole month. Experts view dry January as a chance to re-examine your drinking habits. It comes as the U.S. Surgeon General is pushing for warning labels on alcoholic beverages because of the increased risk for cancer linked to drinking. That does it for this week's edition of Miami Life. We'll see you every Thursday for our Miami Life at 6:30 on the stream. You can also watch all of our Miami Life episodes on demand on our YouTube channel. I'm Jim Barry. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you soon.